Happy Wednesday. This is like hump day for all of us, but we are getting closer to the finish line. Like we just need to
I
keep it
can't do
going,
this. It's not
folks.
working. Messing something up.
Let me see. So who can't mute? Whoever the host is can mute everybody. So whoever's
Veronica Von Veronica's hosting
perfect.
with Sahar.
All right, they got it. Thank you. See, now we're good. Now I don't hear any back noise. All right, so first off, welcome back, folks. I hope you all got some rest. Been a lot happening since even the last time we talked, with Fairfax and Loudoun and, all of these school divisions. And I think that it's important today for us to just do a quick recap of where we were, where we are, and where we're going, because it is so important for us to be reminded around our intentional efforts on what we are trying to achieve and why we are being extremely methodical in regards to how we are operating. I have to say that as I watched, a lot of Fairfax County's board meeting last night, I corresponded with, the superintendent in Loudoun County as well last night because they went into like over past midnight. I didn't stay up that long to watch all their stuff. But it's important for us, the lessons that we can learn from their school divisions is making sure that we have information around why we are selecting the model that we have, and that we also understand what we're going to be planning to do, for the staff as well as for the students, whichever model we select. So let's just start from the beginning. I'm going to take you all up to the best fit piece. First off, let's start off in June, right? We had a vision, before you all were even established as, a cross-functional planning team, was that we were going to have some thought partners to bring them to the table. And these were city officials. We had our director of the Alexandria Health Department. We had all of the guidance that we had received from the Virginia Department of Education, from the Centers of Disease for Disease Control, the CDC, and we were really bringing these thought partners together to get some national guidance on, as we're developing our reopening plans, what is it that we are going to make sure that we think about and that we consider, and from all different angles. And that was all intentional to give us, in a sense, some marching orders and some guidelines and parameters as we begin to develop our plan. We then established you all. You all are like the creme de la creme of experts that are out there. You're devoting your time to this past month. You have expertise that others do not. You have vision, you have integrity, you have passion, that VIP that I always talk about every ACPS employee having. And we established this cross-functional planning teams on purpose. This was intentional. It was specific areas that we knew we were going to need to focus on based off of the information from our thought partners as well as from our national guidance that we received. And we were going to need your input and your insight and your expertise to help guide our work. We also began to try to look at, okay, where do we stand currently as a school division? We began to look at our bordering school communities and looking at their plans. We started looking at some of the data that was out there in regards to reopening our schools and some of that research. And then we also began to do some of our internal data. That is when we did our surveys 2 weeks ago, which seems like a million years ago, right? Because that data is very different. I'm sure now, and when we poll our staff and our families next week, it's going to be very different than it was just 2 weeks ago. But it gave us just some baseline data on our decision making. And that is just an additional data point that we had. We're also now in our community chats, which is huge because we're hearing from our staff, we're hearing from our school community, we're hearing from our community leaders, as well as our families around what some of their questions are, what are some of the hesitations that they have about schooling or reopening, what are some of the concerns, what are some of their suggestions and insight in regards to our planning. So this is all data collection that is occurring, and it's going to help us make some informed decisions. And now we've gotten to the point where we are looking at our two models. We're looking at hybrid and we're looking at 100% virtual. Now, whichever one we choose, both of them are inevitable. And this is what I mean by that. If we go 100% virtual, right, at some point we are still going to have to open our doors. in our buildings at some point. When that point would be, don't know. But if we go 100% virtual, we are still going to have a hybrid model. So the work that we are doing right now is not in vain, regardless of the option that we choose. And it's going to be important for us to remember that health and safety of our staff and our students have to be a top priority for our decision making. In addition to health and safety being a top priority, we have to also think about the feasibility. And next week, we're going to be talking very specifically around the feasibility of these two models. Putting together a model is one thing, right? We all are capable of putting together a model. The bigger question is it feasible? Can it be implemented with fidelity? You know, do we have the resources to actually see it through and to make it possible? And that is really the next phase of our work. So when we provide the board with a recommendation on how we are planning to reopen our schools, we're going to be able to definitively talk through why we believe this is the appropriate model. You know, a lesson I learned from looking at some of the other presentations in neighboring school divisions is that no one had the compelling why we're doing this, right? Everyone used the health and safety line, but at some point, you know, it has to be health and safety and the CDC has given us guidelines in regards to health and safety. So health and safety can't be the only reason, right? It has to be that in addition to some other reasons why we can't do a certain thing, whether it's transportation to and from school, whether it's we don't have the finances to be able to do it at this time, whether it's we don't have the human capital or the staffing to be able to do this at this time. You know, we need to be able to share and articulate with our community why we have selected the particular model and why the other model just doesn't work for right now. And that is something that I see is missing in a lot of our school divisions. But the work that we're doing right now is helping us get there, right? It's definitely going to help us get there. As we start talking about the best fit model for us, I just want us to keep in mind that we can't keep, you know, not that we don't need to ignore what's happening around us, but we need to make sure we're staying laser focused on our task. You know, I know it's difficult to hear everybody saying, well, what about your plan? What about this? And why aren't you doing this right now? Let's keep this in mind. If we had a plan today with all of our factors in place, we still don't have 100% of our staff today. We will not have 100% of our staff until a week before school begins. So we can't even get 100% of our employees engaged into what we're trying to do until towards the end of August, no matter when we release our plan, right? And as you can see now, Fairfax has given themselves till August 15th to come up with all the logistics. We've already planned out to come up with our logistics before August 7th. You know, we have been extremely forward thinking in how we're going to, you know, to work through this reopening process. And I just need us to really, really stay the course. We also have to keep in mind that, you know, the intentional effort we had was to make sure that we weren't just waiting until August 7th to release everything all at once. Every week, we want to be sharing out new information. You know, so this week we want to share out, you know, some information around some of the scheduling that we've looked at, some of the roadblocks that we're seeing that are potential, such as like the staffing has changed, you know, in regards to we're starting to see a lot more people pushing for the 100% virtual, which can shift the percentage of staff who can actually come back to do a hybrid model and approach. You know, next week when we start talking about feasibility, we want to be able to share out with our community around it's feasible or it's not feasible to do a hybrid approach. It's feasible or it's not feasible to do 100% virtual. And this is why it is not feasible. And next week, when we share the information out to our staff, we will then be able to poll our staff and our community around, now that we know it's not feasible to do this model or it's not feasible to do this model, where do you stand, you know, with the option we're going to be proposing to the board? So we're giving our community chunks of information. And that has all been intentional. It's all been a part of the plan. You know, we have to make sure that we're not going to be reactionary and we're not going to just be like, do these knee-jerk kind of like decisions when things get kind of rough. You know, that's how we used to operate. And what we have been striving to do is to like take, you know, or have this paradigm shift from being knee-jerk reactors to being more methodical and strategic, and proactive with our work. And if anybody goes back and looks at what we proposed on June 26th, where we are today is exactly where we want it to be. What we have produced is exactly what we have wanted to produce. And even though it seems like forever for many people out there, this timeline is very aggressive. It is extremely aggressive. We're trying to make a decision that's going to impact thousands of people, thousands of people. Um, so I wanted to kind of get that out there to everybody, because I just know that, you know, people are starting to get like anxious and kind of concerned and worried. We can't do that. This is not the time for us to start getting, you know, kind of nervous and crazy. Like we can't, we got to stay strong. We got to stay laser focused on our efforts and what we are striving to do as a school division. And it's only going to be another week, you know, that we're going to be able to have a clear understanding, not only for us, but also for our school community and our staff around the recommendation we're going to be looking towards on August 7th, which is right around the corner, folks. So we really don't have that much longer. So I wanted to get that out, and then I just want to turn things over to Dr. Mozingo. And I guess at this time, honestly, I will take some questions, because some of you might have a couple of questions. If we have a few minutes, just raise your hand. Use the raise your hand icon if you have some questions about anything that I've just mentioned. This is a good time, you know, to ask it. We try not to do the Q&A during this section because it's hundreds of people on here, but I think that this right now is an opportunity. You know, if somebody has any clarifying questions or comments, this is a good time to do it. And you're also going to have time to talk in your smaller groups too. So don't feel that, you know, you have to speak at this time. I just wanted to leave it open for any burning questions that people might have that they just need to ask. Are you expecting us to share deliberations in general with our colleagues who aren't in these meetings? I think it's important, you know, to share out with your colleagues. You know, the purpose in having this so public, and also this being recorded, like right now, all this is being recorded, you know, is so that we're being transparent. We want our community to see how things evolve. You know, we want our community to see, you know, how we actually have to work through and deliberate regarding, you know, this major decision that has to be made. So absolutely, we definitely want you to share information with your colleagues and let them know kind of where we stand. I think that is very helpful, especially with, you know, our staff. You know, talk to your colleagues, you know, talk to your networks, you know, about what we're doing, so that people know this is not our work in vain. I mean, just think of, if we all of a sudden had a plan, why would we spend all this time really trying to work through like our concerns and our issues? You know, like our staff, if we just release a plan, they're going to say, okay, well, what does that mean for me? And what does that mean for expectations? And what does that mean for resources? They're going to send 1,000 questions in and we won't have any answers. We're going to look crazy. It's going to say, well, what were you all doing? You all don't have any responses. So we need to spend this time to make sure, as we're digging into our options, that we're also able to answer questions when they come, because they're going to come the moment we release our information. I saw Janet Eisenstadt with her hand raised.
Yeah,
Janet.
Just had to unmute. Yes, you, as you know, you participated in the session last night, the community session. And I guess my question for you is, are we still focused on avoiding sort of a one-size-fits-all model? Because as I was looking at the comments and questions last night, I saw a lot of people, I'm particularly thinking about like the citywide classes, and there's other smaller subsets of students. And, you know, as we're doing this, are we really keeping enough flexibility in mind to say maybe this discrete population can have a different model than that discrete population?
Yes, so that's a part of us looking at the feasibility piece and also looking at the feedback from our community. It can't be a one size fits all, right? So for example, even if we go 100% virtual, then we still may have some kids coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and there may be a certain population, and we have determined they just need some additional supports based on the feedback that we've gotten for our community. And one thing that is very different, and that a lot of times I think we forget as a community, when you compare our school division and our demographics to all of the other school division demographics, very, very different. We're talking about Loudoun and Fairfax. Loudoun and Fairfax parents, majority of them, they can afford to have their kids home all day. They don't mind doing whatever they need to do. They don't have any other obligations. And I'm not saying that, that everything is easy for them. But in Alexandria, 61% of our population is free and reduced lunch, right? 61% of our population being free and reduced lunch means that many of those employees or non-employees, they have jobs and they're essential. So they're going to be working at all those places that are still open, and their kids are going to be at home. And not to say that we need to make all of our decisions around that group, but we need to have some options for that group. Like we can't do what we did in the spring, where we just shut everything down and we didn't care what people's issues were, right? We didn't care about the working class. We didn't care about the families who, had to go home. We didn't care about the kids who were at home being either sexually abused, physically abused, or mentally abused every single day, everybody. This is real stuff that's happening to our kids. We found that out when they came to school because we got to see them every day and see their behaviors change. We don't get to do that now, right? So we got to think about those things. That's so important, that my job as superintendent is to make sure I'm the superintendent for all kids, for all families. I can't even use my own personal situation as an example because I know my kids are going to be taken care of in our house. We don't have concerns about whatever option occurs. We will be able to live up to those expectations because my wife and I were able to do that, but every family's not, and every family doesn't want their kids home all day because of the environment. It's not a good environment for their kids, so we have to just start thinking through how do we have some alternative options, even for the division-wide, plan that we have. What are some contingency plans for certain groups and certain people? So to answer your question, Janet, yes.
Thank you.
I saw another question up here. It said, where can we find the recordings? And Julie, I believe that the recordings are on the reopening planning web page, but can you correct me if I'm wrong with that, Julia?
We're actually still translating all of those and captioning them, so we can't actually post them. All of them are available. So we're in the process of doing that now. So they're not posted as of yet.
Okay, I think we're gonna have a problem with that. So how can we get that rushed? Because a lot of people they're missing some of the information that we're not, they can't get from our Q&A and from our community chats.
Yeah, Greg, can I just jump in there? So it's Helen here. So the ones that we have got, so the one from AHA on Monday has been posted because it's captioned. The one from yesterday will go up this morning. You can find them on the community chat page for that chat, along with a link to the FAQs once we've got those ready. So they will go up quickly as we get them.
So I think I'm referring to these sessions that are recorded. So the community sessions, yes, I'm glad to hear about that. And I know that just happened this week, but I'm talking about the sessions that we're doing here because we record these as well. Where are those posted, Helen?
So those, as Julia said, are as we get them, they go for captioning. They are very long, and so they take a lot longer than the 24-hour window for sort of 30 minutes and under. So as they come back to us, we are posting them on the website under either under the cross-functional planning team page, and we don't have all of them. So my appeal is that when you're in a session, please make sure you record it and then you send the link to Sahar so that she has it in the folder, and then we can pull it from there and post them.
Yeah, got it.
I wanted to also add that we've been working with Terry and Sahar to sort of organize it because there's a lot of pieces. And so we've, thanks to Sahar, we've created some folders to put the information so everything is collated together. And so that was another thing that we were working out last week, is making sure we had all the PowerPoints and sort of all the pieces that go along with it, not just the recording. So there's been a little bit of organizational effort that we needed to put into it as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. What we need to make sure, you're right, Julia, from all of the teams, that at the end of your meetings, you put your recordings in that file. If you folder the same day, that's what would help Julia and her team. They actually need the information from the recordings that same day in that new folder that has been created. I think you have all the PowerPoints and all of that. It's just the recordings that we need.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I understand we can't get them done the day of, but I feel that our beginning meeting should already be posted somewhere, because that they were started 2 weeks ago. And if we're not living up to what we said, then that's going to cause, I believe, a trust issue with our community. If we couldn't do that, we should have said that up front, not we're going to post it. And this is honestly my first time knowing that we couldn't post them, that it would take this long. So I think that's something that we're going to need to make sure we try to address. I know that Dr. Z, she had mentioned, broad statements about socioeconomics. When I'm referencing Fairfax, I'm talking about the school division as a whole. I'm not talking about individual schools. So I'm, as superintendent, I don't think, and I shouldn't think like a principal, because I'm not thinking about a school. I'm thinking about this whole school division. And if you go look at Fairfax's overall economics, you will not see 61% free and reduced lunch. You will not see it in any Northern Virginia school division, honestly, except for Alexandria City Public Schools. And that's the point that I'm making. When at their level, they're making decisions for the whole division. They're not saying, oh, we have a school, which there are some schools that are in Fairfax that have 100% free and reduced lunch, right? Which you pointed out, Dr. Z, thank you for pointing it out, on Route 1, right? We do have some schools that are that way. However, overall, that school division is making a decision for their overall demographics, not for that one school. Same way for us, our overall decision is going to be for our division-wide guidelines. But what I want us to make sure we don't forget is that our division-wide, demographics are different at every school, and let's not forget about those kids at those schools too. And I think that's what ends up happening. That's what we did this past fall. We made a blanket decision for the whole division, and a lot of people were left behind, whether it was kids with special needs or students who were low income or working families or kids who were being abused, is the point, that I was just trying to make. So I wanted to clarify that for Dr. Z. So I'm glad you pointed that out, to me. Any other comments or questions? Because I think this kind of dialogue, and I love that, that learning pods were put in there. Dana, thank you for adding that information, and thank you for sending that information. I read somewhere on social media, somebody was like, Dr. Hutchings, he acts like he doesn't know learning pods. I didn't know learning pods. I wasn't acting. I have a need to act. Why would I act stupid? I'm a very intelligent person. I would never pretend like I'm dumb. And I hope none of you will either. That's the dumbest thing you can do. I tell my daughter that all the time. Never act like you're dumb. Always show that you're smart. But the bottom line is the learning pods is a new phenomenon that has happened. I got some research that Dana has shared with me, and I had another parent who sent some information to me yesterday. Dana Chambers, thank you for sharing that. And I got an understanding of these learning pods. It's a new phenomenon that's happened recently with this whole global pandemic, where families are they're establishing like these learning pods with kids, and they're hiring private tutors or teachers to work with students, whether it's outside or in small groups. And they're popping up, all over the place. And they're a lot in California heavily, after I did my research, once I got, some insight. And we also have some here in Alexandria. So it was really my first time hearing about us having them in Alexandria on that call, on Monday, and on a Zoom on Monday. And one thing that I think is going to be important for us is, when I understood that concept, that benefits people who are connected and who have money, right? So that's putting another divide, like instantly. That's saying, okay, I have the means, so I'm going to make sure my child doesn't have learning loss. And I'm going to go pay for a private tutor to come and work with my kid, and you bring your kid over too, and we can split the dollars, right? It would be different if they said, okay, for our kids, we're also going to pay for all the kids who can't afford it. That'd be a different story. But that's not what I heard, so I have some concerns about these learning pods, now that I even know what they are, that we might need to find some ways to ensure that all kids can get some of those additional supports. I know we have tutor.com, but this goes back to when Janet was saying earlier, what are some, additional things you might be doing for certain subgroups, right, or kids? Maybe we have, certain tutoring circles or learning circles that we do some collaboration with Campania, or we do some collaboration with RPCA, or we do some collaboration at rec centers or in community centers, or, where kids can come together and do that for free that's sponsored by ACPS. These are the types of things that we're going to need to be thinking through, because people are going to say, okay, now you're 100% virtual, or now you're hybrid. And they're going to say, now what? Now what? Now what are you going to do? Teachers are going to say, well, what does that mean for me? What if my kids are at home too? Wait, we're going to hear all that from our staff, especially, if we go 100% virtual. Well, my kids are still at home. How am I going to teach? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do, so all of those questions are going to come to us. It's best for us to make sure we're working through a lot of that now. So when the questions do come, we feel confident and comfortable, answering. And I think these past sessions, I want to give kudos to our communications team for making these things happen. I want to give kudos to all of you, because I'm able to answer these questions because I read everything that you all send me, and I get to come and pop in all of your meetings. That's the only reason I know this stuff, right? I am not somebody who knows everything in the world. But if I can read and I can listen, I have critical thinking skills. So I'm making sure that you all are informing me, and that's making me be in a better place. If I had to do that community chat 2 weeks ago, I would look like a fool. I would say, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, So I'm glad that we are taking the time that, one, I don't have to walk out there looking like, the fool, because unfortunately, I'm the spokesperson for the school division. And I don't want to be out there feeling like I don't have the information. So you all are helping me with that. Can a list of the cross-functional team participants be updated with titles and roles? That's a question for our communications team. So yes, we can do that for everybody. If anyone wants to make a learning pod with my two, hit me up. I get it. I get those learning pods. We need to post meeting recordings as we get. Okay, I see that. I purchased correctly. It will cost us. Yep, transparency and trust. That is so true. I'm just trying to go through some of these really quickly. Will staff teachers be asked their preference? So yes, staff and teachers. So really what we're trying to do, so next week when we're doing our feasibility study, that you all are, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that with you all. But next week when we're doing our feasibility study, we are going to specifically be able to determine, is a hybrid feasible? Is 100% virtual feasible, right? And feasible doesn't mean, because a plan that you put together, you might say, well, it's a plan, it should work, right? Feasible means, okay, if we do a hybrid approach, are we going to be able to get kids to and from school safely, right? Are we going to be able to have health screenings every day for staff and students without causing our morning work to be an hour, 2 hours, morning, not doing anything but screening, right? Are we going to be able to have students, in our buildings and socially distance, apart, right? These are like some of the feasibility pieces that are going to be important for us in order to know kind of like whether the option is feasible, and it's beyond just the plan, right? It's, can the logistics actually work? And I think that's another piece that many of our, and I'm sorry, Gregory is so loud, but many of, I don't know if you all can hear him, but I can. Many of our neighboring school divisions, they did not conduct a feasibility study. That's the issue. It's like they were so quick to roll out a plan, but then many of them didn't even know if it was feasible. That's why they're changing their decisions now. Right? Like they're changing because once they started now talking through, okay, well, let's talk through the logistics and how, if we're going to do a hybrid, okay, how are we going to get the kids to school? Okay, only 14 kids can fit on a bus. All right, so what does that bus route look like? What does that bus schedule look? I mean, all those things are important factors, you know? So if we would have gone out to try to be the first and be quick and be like everybody else, we would be changing our plans, especially if we did a plan based off of the survey 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, staff said 60% wanted to come back. I can't wait to see what it says next week, right? So it might be very different, you know, next week for us. So this gives you just an idea of what we're doing this week with the designs, virtual and hybrid. Next week, we're going to be looking at which model is a better fit, which is feasible, you know, for us. And then we're going to be able to poll our staff and our families on Monday, August the 3rd with, hey, this is feasible and this was not feasible and this is why this was feasible and this was why this was not feasible, and get their feedback on what do you think about, like, are you going to come back now that this particular option is feasible? And then we're going to get people's, you know, responses based on that information. I think we're good. I'm going to stop there. I know I thank you for letting me have this time. I know this wasn't planned initially, Sima and Natalie and Dr. Mazingo and Christina, because we normally have our pre-meetings, and I didn't say I was going to go this far into detail, but I'm glad I did. I kind of took this moment to do that because I felt this was really good timing in regards to this discussion, and it needed to happen. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Mazingo.
So thank you so much, but thank you really for taking the time to do that. I think it's important from time to time for all of us to hear what you've just said this morning and still setting that expectation. The only comment that I was going to make, and you basically said it, was just stay true to the process. Stay true to the process, and the process will work out. So I'm going to turn it over at this time to Natalie. She's going to get us started for today. And I just wanted to say to Jody, yes, Jody, we can loop you in on the model of the tutorial support and services, and maybe learning circles, learning pods for ACPS. So thank you, Natalie, now.
All right, good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone's lovely faces today. And thank you, Dr. Hutchings, for opening this morning and answering all these great questions. We'll make sure that we capture the rest of the questions that are in the chat, because there are some really great discussion points that I want to make sure we hit on later here too. So we're going to have a bunch of updates today, and then we'll share a little bit more about what our team is thinking about for a design challenge next week in order to involve all staff across ACPS in this process and get more input into some really big decisions when we think about scheduling. So first, I'm going to turn it over to Christina, and she's going to give us some updates on scheduling guidance planning that happened this week.
Great. Thanks, Natalie. Good morning, everyone. So wanted to give some just quick high-level data on work we're doing this week. We focused our attention on hybrid schedule tests. So we had principals from the elementary, middle school, and high school levels as they were testing out the following model that is posted on the slides, where there was one planning day that was aligned across divisions in Northern Virginia for a planning day on Monday, that we had 2 days of in-person learning across 50% of our capacity. So bringing in all students for 2 days of in-person and then 2 days of distance learning, with the idea that there's also some flexibility to bring in additional populations, which we defined in a variety of ways. Some things that came up already in the chat is thinking about how we're going to best support students who are in special populations, whether that's level 1 and 2 English language learners, whether that's students who are receiving special services, or if it's students who are grade levels behind or based on engagement data from the spring. So we define those in a few different ways. Right now, some big wins are that we have a really clear picture of the challenges with hybrid models, what we can make work, and some ideas of some innovative solutions for getting a hybrid model off the ground. One of the key takeaways is that if 100% of students opt into a hybrid model, there are going to be barriers that we need to think about around classroom capacity and anticipated staff concerns. What we want to do moving forward, that we're going to pull the scheduling crew together later on this week, is making sure that we're moving forward with a clear plan for what a virtual model looks like, how we can take the learnings from the spring, the summer, from 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, to really create a really thoughtful plan for what 4.0 can look like in a virtual model. So our next steps are that we're going to test out some reduced capacity hybrid models. So thinking about what it could look like instead of 2 days in person, so 50% capacity to maybe doing 1 day in person, thinking about that phased model, knowing that regardless of how we start, that we need to be prepared for both hybrid and virtual at some point in the year. And that we really want to make sure that we're focusing our attention on building out really robust virtual models. So getting really clear on synchronous and asynchronous expectations so that the experience of virtual learning is really clear and streamlined and easy to navigate for families, for teachers, and for students. So I know there are probably a ton of questions about the schedule, but want to just note that we have a smaller group that's really testing out these ideas, and we'll continue to bring them to this group. The work that you all are doing in the playbooks on professional learning, on synchronous and asynchronous expectations, on capacity, are all going to be pulled into that scheduling prototype. So thank you all for adding those decisions in. It's really making the work of our schedule much clearer.
Thank you, Christina. Next up, just real quick, wanted to hand this over to Julia for a community conversation update.
Thanks, sorry, had to unmute myself. Well, first off, I know that I've talked to many of you individually, but I want to say thank you so much for all your contributions this week. It has really been a great illustration of how we've been working together, and I think that what it has showed is the amount of work that's going into creating this reopening plan and the number of team members that are working on it. So I just really want to thank everybody for their contributions, and especially to my team. I can't take credit. They've been sort of the masterminds behind putting all these pieces together. And so I really want to thank them as well. So we had a number of people that joined us. We actually had almost 800 people join us on Monday for the ARHA chat. We had about 200 people join us for the special needs chat yesterday. And then we had, I believe it was 600 for the staff chat yesterday. We have a ton of questions that have come in through both the chats on Zoom as well as Facebook Live. And I'm meeting with the team later. We're going to talk about how we synthesize that information. A lot of it is repeat questions, a lot of redundancy. So we have to sort of sift through it and really pull out the questions that have not been answered in our FAQ. So, you know, some people hadn't read our FAQ, so they were asking questions that we already had in there. So we're going to sort of look through and see what's unique and what is it that we really want to focus on. And I think to support what Dr. Hutchings was talking about earlier is that what's great about having all these questions is that it's going to force us to really think about these things and have a really robust FAQ as we roll out our plans, so that when people are asking questions, we have those questions answered, or we've already thought about them, or we've already put some pen to paper about it. So I think the richness of these chats and the utility of it will be just helping us think through things that we haven't already thought about, and also just trying to quell some of the fears that people have, and knowing that we are thinking about these things in advance. So I think we are going to be trying to synthesize some of that information and then share it out. You know, Dr. Mazingo asked me a little earlier this morning about sharing, and we definitely want to share with the cross-functional planning teams, but we're talking about hundreds of comments, and so we want to sort of clean it up and get them together, synthesize it, put them in an FAQ format so we can start responding to them and sharing them that way. Sure, happy to, you know, share the raw data, but it's a lot of information. So we're trying to make it digestible and not just throw a whole bunch of Excel spreadsheets your way. So thank you all again, and I look forward to the rest of the chats. And of course, we have the student chats next week, which will be interesting and probably have a lot more information. We're expecting it to be more on the student life and social emotional side, and with the questions from our students. So thanks again for all your work this week.
Thank you, Julia. I have a placeholder here in case, Clint, you'd like to provide an update as to part 2 of the qualitative data that's now available.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we just completed the part 2 of the qualitative data and shared that with the full team this morning. So that will be made available to the full 4.0 planning team. The part 2 is completely congruent with part 1 in terms of format and context. So it's still answering the same question from the June Pulse survey in terms of what can ACPS do to make you feel most comfortable in returning to in-person instruction. Part 2 is a little different from part 1, it just solely in the sense that it does include all open-ended responses that we had to send out for translation. So for any survey respondents who are responding in a different language, those responses will be included in part 2 in English, as well as additional English responses. So those are available now.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I don't need to go into detail with this. This was a lot of what Dr. Hutchings and others have shared this morning, but I wanted to drive this home and then release everyone out in just a few minutes to go back to your cross-functional planning teams to build out the playbooks and scheduling guidance and all those individual pieces, because that really, all of those pieces are going to be used by our Oompa Loompa team of Natalie and Christina and the rest of the chairs that are going to be pulling together everything that is in all of the different pages of workbooks and playbooks so that we really have a deep understanding of what these different models can be. And so we're able to test for feasibility, as Dr. Hutchings mentioned. One thing we're noting, and I want to highlight this because this was also throughout the chat this morning, is that there's some big questions out there in order to both support virtual and in-person learning, and they require some big ideas and a lot of collaboration in order to solve. So we have a way that we're proposing to do this. So I want to hand this over to Natalie to introduce this to the team.
Hi again, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we are calling our design challenges and idea showcases. The reason why we came across this idea, I want to share it with you all, is because it's a great opportunity to have some protected time to share best practices, to generate innovative solutions around these barriers and challenges that we've been speaking to this morning. We also want to acknowledge that outside of these 9 to 11 a.m. calls on Mondays and Wednesdays, there is a ton of work happening across cross-functional planning teams and outside of the cross-functional planning teams. So we want to break down silos as much as possible and create this showcase so that people can share challenges that they are addressing and tools and resources that they're starting to build. So some of the topics that we're thinking about grounding the design challenges and showcases in, we've put on this slide here to note creative staffing, staff collaboration, innovative distance learning. We've heard a lot about these learning pods, student passion projects, childcare options, and partnerships. So these are just a tentative list of topics. And so we'd love in the chat, as you start to think about other ideas or innovative solutions or topics you'd like to include in these design challenges, for you to add them so that our team can take note of that and start designing a protocol and a space for you to talk about those topics as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Christina, and she's going to talk a little bit more about some common questions we hear for design challenges.
And to echo what Natalie had said just a second ago, the more conversations that we're a part of and the more that we hear about the work that you all are doing on the side, the more it's clear that there is just incredible work going on, but that it's happening in really small buckets. And what we want to do, and we think that we have a really great opportunity to do, is to create some structure so that you can share those best practices and get some feedback on them and build across the division. So you might be thinking, can anyone join, or is this just for cross-functional planning teams? We think it's really important that all ACPS staff is able to attend. If you're thinking, maybe I'm not that creative, that I shouldn't be a part of this, I don't have an incredibly innovative idea right now, we think that it's really important for you to be a part of the conversation and that you have a unique set of skills and expertise. There's also an article there on creative confidence that we think is really interesting to read if you have a moment of downtime. We also know that you might be thinking, do I need to bring anything? Do I need to have anything prepped in advance? The only thing that we would ask is that if you have something that you want to get feedback on that you think could be really useful for a larger team, that you bring that to the conversation so that you can share. If you don't have something that you want to get feedback on or want to share with the team, just bring yourself and we'll make sure that we have resources and the structures ready. What we'll do with this information is add it to the playbooks and make sure to share it across the division so that we're really bringing that idea of what are the expectations for an educational vision across the division, and make sure that we're really building on the learnings from the spring and the summer. So thank you all. Excited to see what happens.
Awesome. So with that, I think we're going to release into our cross-functional planning team. So as a reminder, today there's two main items as a continuation from Monday. The first is highlighting outstanding decisions. So if there are key decisions that your department or team are not the owner of, or they move across multiple teams, please highlight that in your workbook so that we're able to go through and understand which decisions need to be discussed as part of the feasibility analysis next week. And the second part is getting into the playbooks and finishing up the playbooks and the guidance in there. So thank you so much. We will stay on for help with links as we always do, and let us know if there are any questions. We need some exit music next time.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Something nice and soft or fun. I don't know.
Any questions from the team? Oh, thank you, Sahar. Sahar just posted all of the links to the Zoom.